Welcome to Module 5 of the CDOT Utilities Process Management course. In this module, we'll explore how each utility's impact to the design phase during the pre-construction to 90% and PS&E portion of this course. So we're looking at pre-construction, again, 90% to PS&E, and this is sometimes where we get into utility construction activities as well. So we'll set that up and show how we've migrated from the 30% to 90% phase that was completed, and now again moving forward to the final push for the CDOT project out to PS&E, and then how intertwines with utility construction, early relocations, maybe some as-built stuff, and pre-bid conferences. So at this stage, from 90 to 100% plans, PS&E, we're looking at utility projects that may be in early relocation mode. So there is an opportunity now to bring on the construction management portion of our utility process management. And so you'll see down the bottom that now you'll see the construction management portion showing up in this phase, and also on this slide, there's a little bit of utility coordination that has to occur as well along with the construction management. So utility inspectors are unique to certain projects. They're not for every project, but for projects that have large utility impact or high risk utilities, it's a really good idea to have construction management specific to utility inspection and construction available. And we've piloted this throughout mostly Region 3 over the past 5 years or so, and have had really strong results with this type of scenario. And so construction management, utility inspector, again, introduced to the utility portion of a project. We're looking at what are the roles outlined for that position, and what are they supposed to be over, and what is their oversight of a utility project. So there is several roles that are performed. Before bid, they come in and work with the utility coordinators to transition from the pre-construction side into the utility construction side, and so that means they have to come in, prior to bid, and help facilitate those utility relocations. Sometimes they, stay on after award and help with construction and during construction, which is important to support the construction as a whole and be there as that go-between the general contractor and the utility company. They're also very involved in, again, the construction oversight, the as-built surveys that go on either early relocations or during construction, but the oversight of ensuring that those as-builts are complete and documented during the installation of the utilities is extremely important. CDOT does have utilizing new mobile technology. It's a mobile app called PointMan. This mapping program is utilized for many different things during the utility construction side. For instance, the PointMan mobile app is utilized for one called ticket management for construction. It's also utilized for the as-built surveys and real-time data uploads into CDOT's database, utility database, and it's also there for documenting construction observations. So just the construction activity itself, we have forms built into the mobile application that will help document what is going on with the particular construction activity. And so and part of that is within the mobile app, locations of proposed lines can be in there, and those can be monitored to ensure that locations of those lines are are installed in the proper location and out of the way for future improvements so that there's less potential for secondary relocations. We certainly don't want to put lines in and then have to move them again. That just creates additional delays on our projects. So it's critical to have those proposed lines, and when they are being installed, that there's checks and balances on where they're going, not only horizontally but vertically as well. And again, as we move into the utility construction side, each utility that's being relocated is permitted by the utility permitting system, so that we have a record of what happened and how it was installed. There's several standard provisions that are included in our permits, which include insurance requirements in case there is an issue out there, there's a problem that arises that creates a claim or a liability towards the utility company or their contractor. So we do request a certificate of insurance. Other compliance with CDOT regulations like traffic control plans and worker safety plans, construction requirements around environmental as far as stormwater, restoration of an area that is maybe outside the limits of disturbance for our contractors. So we may need restoration in those areas because if they don't, then it becomes a problem for our contractors when they do arrive to work, and it's not part of their contract to restore or re-veg an area. So keeping track of that, the construction management team is well versed on monitoring that for compliance as well. Also within our permits, it does have the requirement for as-built as well. So some utilities have the capability of doing it themselves. Sometimes it's a joint effort, but regardless, we want to have the ability to capture that data as we see it installed.
I think that this step in the process is so vitally important, transitioning from design to construction, as you've noted. It seems like too many times in the past we've not had a great transition, or we haven't had as much collaboration as we'd like, and that continuity from design through utility coordination to construction. And this is really beneficial to a project, carrying those thoughts and tenets and ideas and agreements through construction, because sometimes that handoff is just it's missed, and you get in the field and you don't have that, like I said earlier, continuity that you need, and that understanding of not only what they're moving but why.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Joe. I think it's extremely important, and we'll show in a couple of slides a good example of why the handoff from pre-construction to construction, if you don't continue to monitor the construction side, how it can affect a project. And it's been CDOT's world to just hand it off and then allow the utility contractors in good faith that they'll get their stuff done, they'll put it in the right place. And we've found that that's not the case, and it does cost us time and money. And so yeah, this process definitely is set up to mitigate that from what we have seen in the past, to try and have more oversight and make sure that, like the work plan that we've developed throughout this process, is followed through, and the commitments that are in that work plan are adhered to, and that we have the expectation for those penalties if there's non-compliance. We need to document all that, because there's been cases where the work plan has been developed early on, the commitments are there, and then utility companies, over time change their priorities and things change, and then it becomes a delay claim for our contractors. So yeah, managing this handoff, especially the work plan that's been, developed into a final spec and all that stuff is monitored during construction. And this slide here articulates that. It's like, well, we know who's paying for the relocation. If it's utility company or CDOT, it's fine. What segment of the utility is to be moved? What's the alignment and where is it going to be? That's all hashed out and should be known by now. And the time frame and the schedule is in the commitment and the work plan and should be in the schedule as well for the utility relocation, or in the spec depending on where the timing of the move, of course. But definitely this is a utility coordination effort that is definitely handed over to the construction management team to monitor once this starts the construction side of things. And as we show this example, and this is a good example of we've gone through this entire process. We're now designed and we've gone to construction, and there should be a construction inspector, boots on the ground out there. And Joe has a good example here of how things worked and maybe how things could have worked better.
Yeah, and so the example you see on the screen is really a coordination effort with a gas company on the west slope, where we knew that they had to relocate an 8-inch high-pressure gas line through the project site. And they had communicated with us on the left side of the screen what their plan was, and we interpreted that and looked at their running line and where it would impact our future improvements. So we identified potential conflicts in the field. If you can see on the right side of the screen, at the drawing there in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a box, and it talks about, please reference the plans, please avoid this inlet because your running line will essentially go right through it. And we communicated this with the office personnel, on a utility coordination meeting. We're able to speak to the office personnel of the gas company and say, be cognizant of this potential conflict. But where we missed the mark is not having eyes and ears in the field for construction management full time. And the end result of that, we'll see on the next slide, is that the contractor was never really given the information that we had discussed with the office personnel previously. So they were without the knowledge of future improvements. And so if you'll see in the first picture off to the left, there's a yellow stake and cones. That is the future inlet. And as you can see in the trench, that is the brand new bored gas line that wasn't in more than 24 hours before we realized that they had not paid attention to the plans, although the contractor had attached their permit, and now they needed to relocate this new line. So what you see is the improvement, or the solution to moving around that inlet. So the gas company came in and cut a big U-shape trench around that future inlet, and had the crews had installed this 40-foot section of 8-inch gas line, a 40-foot welded coated steel line around that inlet within a week of the installation. And we were able to, luckily, we were able to have them move it because we had provided such good documentation and utility coordination previously. But if we'd had personnel in the field as they were doing the full installation, we could have caught this before it actually occurred. So a real learning process for us. It's unfortunate it happened. Glad it actually and we were able to catch it before before our contractor was fully on site. But certainly a mistake that we had to remedy pretty quickly, and it cost the gas company quite a bit of money, obviously.
Yeah, this is a good example of some of the problems we have all over the state with utilities. We have a utility drawing design that's based on their plans and their schematic, and it rarely ever includes our roadway improvements. So we have to take their drawings and drop it in somehow into our drawings and make sure that it fits the alignment that we're looking for. But like you said, there's always a miscommunication, I believe, from the office staff to the construction staff.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been out in the field more often than not, and I've asked contractors, where are your plans, and they'll pull their utility plans for the utility company provided them. Like, well, where are your CDOT plans? Because we've added that information to our plans, our utility plans, and that was supposed to be provided to you when you go to construction. We gave that to your office staff, and lo and behold, it never made it to them. Or like you said, it was in the permit, but still never made it to the construction side, the construction team that's working for the utilities. And that's where, if we have, like you said, an inspector out there to ask those questions, to check on, where their proposed bore is going to go, that we can avoid more of this kind of stuff. And so, extremely important, but a good example of, how it went, and, there was a solution, but it cost the utility company money, it cost us time and everything else.
Yeah, I think of construction management. I was trying to think of a football analogy where we started at the planning phase, we're on the 1 yard line, and we drive all the way down the field. And we've gone through all of our stages, right? Our FIR, our FOR, we've done all the utility coordination, we've done all the meetings with the providers, we have the SUE, we have the test holes, and we get to maybe the 10-yard line, and we don't punch it in the end zone. If we don't do utility coordination, it feels like we fumbled the ball, essentially. And that 80-yard drive at that point, or that 90-yard drive, has gone for naught. And we've got to get that ball into the end zone. And utility construction management really is that last 10 yards.
Yeah, and some of the projects that we have managed this way, I think has pushed that football into the end zone. Like this particular project that we're showing here is a good example of how we collected as-built information during construction, during the actual installation, when the utilities were open. And so what you're seeing on the screen is a project in Region 3 that we piloted several years ago. And on the right-hand side is just a picture of the surveyor that was out there surveying those conduits as they were being installed, collecting the horizontal and vertical information on the project datum, which is important. And then that data was reduced to a CAD drawing, an as-built CAD drawing, which you're seeing on the left. And what you see there is some numbers, some black numbers and some little dots. Those are the observations that were collected, surveyed in. So there's horizontal and vertical positions established on those. And there's a red line that's a common trench. And so as that red line opens up, you'll see all the individual utilities coming out of that represented there, electric and gas and fiber and things. And so when you translate that to the right in the picture, that's also what you're seeing is those same conduits as they come together, up there. And so it's very important. This was an early relocation, so we were collecting all of this information while it was being installed. So we didn't have a CDOT contractor on board yet. And this was, again, we were trying to document the new situation that was going on out there. And ultimately, what that led to was a project-wide as-built drawing that had the ability to capture all that information throughout the entire project. And so what you're seeing on the screen is a roll plot of this entire phase of this project. The green lines on the screen are all proposed new storm drain lines. And so the goal was to obviously move everything out and away or adjust it to an elevation that will allow all the storm drain lines to be installed once the contractor arrived and was working. They had kind of a clear utility corridor. So this information was gathered during our 90 to 100% plan development when it was getting ready to go out to add. So this was, again, that early relocation, but this data was captured and then supplemented for a pre-bid meeting with the contractors that were interested in bidding on this project. And the goal was to show the contractors that we had gone through this early relocation. We had precise horizontal and vertical locations on where the new utilities were at, and that we made every effort to move them either outside the project limit or the construction limits, and also those crossings. There are crossings of this new storm drain of those lines, but we adjusted them vertically to accommodate excavation over the top, and they had coordinates to verify that. So this was, again, what the level of effort that we felt like was very beneficial to our project, in the fact that we went through the specification. This final specification was built off of what we had going on with the utility construction project. We were able to show the as-built drawings, and we were able to verify the relocated positions, and that the contractor basically had some really good information to work with when they got ready to bid on this project. And so as the utility coordination team sat down with these contractors for pre-bid, the contractors had a lot of questions, and we went through all those questions, but ultimately the bids, we felt like were probably a little lower than we would normally see, just due to the lowering of the risk for the contractor. But ultimately, this project had no delays when it came to the utility side of things. And overall, the project fared very well, was built on time and within budget. And so we really felt like this is a good example of how projects can be managed for early relocation with construction management team, because we did have a construction management team out there on site through the entire project, and that's where the data was gathered through that process.
How many times do you think, how many times out of 10 do you think we can get things moved pre-bid?
I would say it's probably almost a 50-50 shot sometimes, because of the nature of where we're at. It's really tricky sometimes to get that stuff moved ahead of time. But it's looking at it all the way through the process and then determining what the advantages of phasing early or phasing during construction or both. But regardless, having that management team, construction management team, at any stage is really important for gathering and managing that data and managing the notifications in the specs, what's to come, letting the contractors know you need to provide notice to whatever utility company might be. They're 30 days out, they're 45 days out. Right. So there's a lot of advantages. Like, it's not always going to be this situation where you can move everything early. More often than not, it's going to be construction-related relocations during construction.
And one right now, we had some utilities move pre-bid. We're in the process of moving utilities right now pre-construction, and then there'll be more utilities move by our contractor during construction. So it kind of meets, it falls into, you know, the relocations are falling all along this time frame. Pre-bid, which I think is ideal, but more likely, it seems, even after all the coordination, the responsiveness of the utility contractors coming in when they know they absolutely have to do it pre-construction, and then our contractor reaping the gains of that, although it's seemingly in the 11th hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this concludes the 90 to 100% design phase module for CDOT Utilities Process Management. The final module is the course that examines the construction phase as it goes out to construction. We'll be examining that here in a little bit. However, before you go, here are some key points to remember. Determine what's been relocated and what's left to relocate, just like you just spoke about, you know, Joe, and when you have a project that's relocating early somewhat, and then there's still things to move during construction, so it's keeping tabs on all of that is extremely important with the construction management type of scenario. And then clearly define and coordinate roles between the utility company, utility coordination team, and the construction management team. You know, there's a communication is one of the biggest hurdles and breakdowns we have in our system with relocating utilities. And Joe, you showed a great example of how communication broke down, and then it created a problem during the utility installation, and they had to move it again. So, you know, there's that effort that we need to really monitor to try and help with those situations. Any closing thoughts on this module?
No, just a really important step that, as we reiterated all throughout this, and how, again, it's just critical to have, so you do reap the rewards of all the work you've done through planning phase, and, you know, through the other design phases. So, and this is the one that we would love universally through CDOT. This is probably one of the biggest missing links, I think, in our program, and but it's absolutely essential for project success.